We're now hearing from the group Free Tibet that another Tibetan monk has set himself on fire. It happened this morning in China's Qingdao province. The monk, named Tamcho Sangpo, belonged to his monastery's Democratic Management Committee. Those are committees that are set up by Chinese authorities to monitor the actions inside each monastery. And his monastery had actually also been going through a political re-education campaign set up by local authorities. Now, Free Tibet is reporting that after Sangpo set himself on fire, people are now no longer being allowed in or out of his monastery, and that the phone lines have also been cut. Now, this comes as Chinese Vice President Xi Jinping is wrapping up his visit to the U.S. We reported earlier today that he was met with Tibetan protesters as he flew into LA, which is the last stop on his visit.
Thousands of protesters clashed with police on Monday in the Chilean capital. The violence broke out during a demonstration to show support for residents protesting in southern Chile demanding more social benefits. Police used tear gas and water cannons in an attempt to disperse the crowds, who had blocked a main avenue in Santiago. Protests began Friday in southern Chile's Patagonia, after negotiations with the government for more social benefits failed. Here, dozens of transport workers block a highway with their vehicles. Community and workers' organizations are demanding better healthcare access, fuel subsidies, education, and improvements to infrastructure in the region, some 1,000 miles south of the capital.
Police on Monday arrested 10 people protesting austerity measures. The demonstrators were showing support for people arrested last week during a similar protest against austerity. Riot police clashed with the protesters, leaving some of them complaining about brutal tactics. Some caught up in the violence claimed they were not even part of the protest. Local television networks broadcasted video of people bleeding from their faces after clashes with the police. Elena Valenciano, General Vice Secretary of the opposition Socialist Party, said the police had used indiscriminate violence during a demonstration last week.
Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Wednesday, February 22nd, 2012, and I'm Darko. My website is ggnonline.com, that's right here, and on YouTube, ddarko 2012 and ddarko 2013. Please subscribe to the 2013 if you can. I put a new poll up here, come check it out and vote if you like. What do you think or feel? When do you think or feel the crap will hit the fan in the next 3 months? So far, we have 6 voters, 40% saying in the next 3 months. Within the next 12 months, 4 voters, 26%, and 26% saying in the next 4 years. And we have 6% saying never. It will be a smooth transition. So you can put in your email address to receive updates there. Okay, I'm ready to move on here. The first article I have up is EU's Prodi admits leaders knew euro would cause ruin but hoped political union would follow. So it goes in and says the EU's top politicos knew what was going to happen to the EU, and in fact they planned for it. It says here we can see for this shocking excerpt above just how duplicitous these leaders were. And which in 2002 was the European Commission. Prodi said, well, the difficult moments were predictable. He went on to said, or asked the question of how can we have a common currency without shared financial, economic, and political pillars, they would make this great leap forward and the rest will follow. Then instead came the Europe of fear of China, fear of immigrants, fear of globalization. So it was clear that this crisis would arrive. It went on and said that the euro was so important and convenient for everyone, especially Germany, that I have no doubt that the euro won't just survive, but it will be one of the landmarks for the world economy, Euro News. So when asked what drove them to a European currency, he said they wanted to build a new Europe, maybe a federal or United States of Europe. We've heard that before, right? And he says they have to put together the pillars. He keeps saying the pillars, kind of a Masonic term there, but of a modern state. These pillars are the army and the currency. With army, I mean foreign policy, defense, and security. With currency, an economic symbol. So it says it doesn't really matter which one they start with, but they found out that the economic side has developed more quickly. That's why they do everything with trade agreements and that. They push with all their strength because if the economy isn't unified, we don't have a common currency, we can't face the future to make this world government. Moving on here, next article is on Greece. The debt deal may leave Greece on short end. European Central Bank appears to be doing its part to help Greece reduce its crushing debt burden by transferring profits from its Greek bond holdings to Eurozone governments. There's just one problem. It remains far from clear that all of this money will wind up in Athens. By handing over its profits to national governments, the ECB is simply adhering to its long-standing rules, but has no control over how Spain, Italy, and others use their share of billions they stand to gain from the ECB's 50 billion euro and Greek bond holding. Then we have Eurozone opts to keep Greece under the umbrella. The umbrella, kind of like a pillar. Europe opted on Tuesday to keep Greece in the Eurozone, agreeing a huge financial lifeline worth 237 billion euros, but demanding Athens meet a long list of conditions first. And it's going to leave Greece facing years under European Union wardenship, which maybe that was the plan the whole time. So besides spelling out the conditions, including a time-limited rewrite of the Greek constitution, this $310 billion bailout, obtained after 3.2 billion euros in spending cuts rammed through the Greek parliament during violent protests, also depends on bondholders agreeing to a deal to wipe 53% off the paper value of privately held Greek sovereign debt. Bumpy right ahead as gas prices may soon hit $4 a gallon. It says here, gasoline prices could hit $4 a gallon, a threshold they haven't flirted with since last spring. It says here, chief among the unknowns is war in the Middle East, or if not war, increased tensions, i.e. fear-mongering to, increase fuel prices and that. It's such worries, he says, that are most responsible now for the run-up in prices at the pump. And I'll cover an article that I covered recently. U.S. sanctions on Iran meant to gain Washington global rule. United States seeks world domination with its sanctions on Iran, as Washington cannot tolerate any independent countries, American political analysis says. And this is, of course, who Webster Tarpley quoted as saying, well, the purpose of this economic warfare and the goal is world domination. It is the acting out of historical conviction that we have here a kind of psychosis of destabilization, as I called it. Tarpley goes on to say, as part of the U.S. ruling elite, says here that they are determined not to tolerate any independent countries anywhere in the world. Europeans entered talks to buy Iran oil. Only European countries with a 2 to 5 year contract with Iran can purchase a country's crude. Otherwise, Tehran's relations with those companies will be reconsidered, managing director of the National Iranian Oil Company said. So oil rises to 9-month high as Iran bars nuclear inspectors from base. So they've been cooperating with the IAEA recently. And I guess supposedly, reportedly, they're not letting them into a certain facility. So, I guess I can only bash Iran for that when the IAEA and UN atomic inspectors, whatever, any different types of organizations that are bought and paid for by the West and the global elites start going into Israel and the United States and start looking at their stockpiles of nuclear weapons. Then maybe we can start pointing fingers at Iran. But remember this article, oilprice.com. This is from January 12, 2012, why oil prices are about to collapse. Among some of the other reasons the author gives, he goes on and says, while there will be undoubtedly a short-term price rise, which is what we're going through right now, which I reported on, about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, cheered on by the usual suspects. In the medium and long term, the embargo will act to reduce oil prices. This is because Iran will necessarily have to sell oil at below market price to China and others, and since the market is already oversupplied, particularly in Europe, this will undercut market prices generally. Mexico has routinely hedged oil production for years, and Qatar, who are very shrewd operators, began to do the same in November 2011 since they expect the prices to fall this year. He says here, in the short term, the Iran crisis is, in his view, being hyped for all it's worth to entice yet more unwary speculators into the oil market so that other producers may sell their production forward at high prices while they last before the inevitable and imminent collapse. Speaking of oil in Mexico, U.S.-Mexico signed a accord for joint oil exploration in Gulf. And just remember, before I was covering, I reported on an article where the Obama regime was basically announcing that they were going to start drilling for oil inside the United States, but unfortunately they're going to be exporting it. U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and Mexican Foreign Minister Patricia Espinosa signed an agreement today for the development of oil and gas reserves that straddle the two nations' boundaries in the Gulf of Mexico. It says the agreement is the first of its kind signed by the U.S., and it goes on, it says that when it comes into force, the agreement will end the current moratorium on oil exploration and production in the western gap portion of the Gulf of Mexico. It says this, with this, we are setting aside the old fear that honestly exists among many Mexicans that the Mexicans' oil could be extracted from the other side, which it probably will, right? So in the United States, we want to actually use our own oil. Why doesn't Mexico use their own oil? Why doesn't Canada use their own freaking oil? Why do we have to have it sent all the way across the freaking world and then we import it from the Middle East? I mean, this is just ridiculous. But hey, it's good for election time, right? For Obama, they're gonna do the whole strike on Iran, and that's going to lower the oil gas prices because, isn't it weird how all of a sudden they've gone up, and it probably has nothing to do with Iran, but they're just going to do that, and they're going to get all these people pissed off in the U.S., and they're going to be like, yeah, let's take Iran, and they'll give them, the reward for the sheep will be lower gas prices in the interim. And it looks like, just talking to someone yesterday, a business owner in the neighborhood that I live in, that he said, it looks like Obama's going to get reelected. And I've heard that a couple times now from people. So it seems like Mr. Obama, possibly a clone of the Pharaoh Akhenaten, could stay in office for another 4 years. Remember, we were just talking about Secretary of State Clinton. Well, Larry Summers is saying that Clinton is said to be the leading contender for the World Bank. But wait a minute, I thought Hillary Clinton was dodging the political high wire, right? Getting out after a job well done. It was funny because I actually thought we were going to see the first female president or possibly a military general. And then all of a sudden, it's weird. Now we're just going to see Obama again. And it's like with Clinton, when she stepped down all of a sudden, kind of like Zolik, who stepped down with all those other head banks that I covered on, Monday, about they all just stepped down. Abruptly, something's going on, some kind of shift, and with Clinton going to the World Bank, it kind of, I was thinking maybe she'll run for president, but no, that was wiped away really, really fast because that's just child's play, right? That's being a president like that. The real gig is the World Bank, the WHO, or maybe she'll work for her for the mothership, right? The Council on Foreign Relations. The organization that actually makes the decisions for the American sheep, who Hillary Clinton actually said they look to for advice. J.P. Morgan, Citi, Bank of America sued for $949 million by C-Link for mortgage-backed security derivative markets. I actually saw an article from Bloomberg that was possibly from last year, in the past 18 months. I tried looking for it again, I couldn't find it, but either way, it was Bank of America saying that Venezuela was overweight in debt. And I was like, what? Bank of America is going to somehow, talk about Venezuela, who was calling in their gold reserves recently for being overweight in debt, for trying to get away from this global system. Bank of America, a company that was technically insolvent for the longest time, right? And the only reason they weren't insolvent was because they didn't allow the foreclosures to process. And they did that for a reason. Okay, moving on here, we have Feds write sweeping rules from behind closed doors. So remember, they got dictatorial powers back in 2008, 2009 because of the banker heist, so they're going to be able to rewrite the rule book governing the U.S. financial system behind closed. Temporary work is going to be the norm now. Now work till you drop for boomers. And the rich who probably don't depend on Social Security say, hey, raise the age, as the elderly are treated as objects.